Hello and welcome to Paradox, Untold Stories from Athletic Directors with Dr. Danielle Lapointe and Dr. Dustin Smith. We have some crazy and unique stories for you, which are made possible by our sponsor, Wall of Fame. At the Wall of Fame, our mission is to bring your school's legacy to life. We transform school tributes to make it easier than ever to celebrate your whole community, showcasing your school's diverse history, proudest moments, and top role models. We understand that the true value of our Wall of Fame is in your content. Whether you are starting a new tribute or adding to an existing one, we give you all the resources you need to build an interactive experience and take your content to the next level. Speaking of next level, let's check in to see what Danielle and Dustin have for us today.
We are back with another episode. Today we have Mike Mossbrucker. How are you doing today, Mike?
Hey, I'm doing great.
We are excited to have you here. We're going to have a great episode. You've already had us cracking up before we started recording, so I'm really looking forward to continuing this. And I know Dustin is. Dustin's always happy over there. How you doing, Dustin?
And I'm excited for the day. It's a great day to be on here, and a great day to have a good friend Mike Mossbrucker on here with us. And Mike and I, he's one of the few guests that I can say I've been in his home. And Mike is on the NIAAA board with me, or I guess I'm on the board with him. It's the Mike. Let me tell you that again. It's the Mike Mossbrucker show on the board, and we all just get to be a part of it. When I first got on the board, one of our previous guests, Greg Smith, kind of held court. And now when Mike speaks, everybody listens. They just pay attention to whatever he says. But Mike invited us all to his house, our recent July meeting, and we got to hang out at his house. What I really like is that there's very little yard work for him. His backyard's full of a pool and an outdoor entertaining area. And we had quite an eclectic group of people that were at the board meeting. And of course, we're at his house, and we had a very intense game of bags that was played, or a tournament of bags, I guess, that was played out in the front yard. So got to meet a couple of Mike's neighbors as well. So it was really nice opportunity for us to just go hang out with Mike. And so when we were at the board meeting, it was pretty funny because everybody's like, who's the next guest going to be on? Who's the next guest going to be on the podcast? And so I asked Mike, I said, man, we need to get you on there. And he said, anytime, I'd be glad to do it. So Mike has adjusted and adapted and rescheduled with us. So we finally got Mike on here. Mike, I'm excited to have you on. I appreciate you jumping on here with me.
Well, hey, great opportunity for me. I'm always looking for an opportunity to get better and grow. And certainly this is an opportunity for me. And so I'm honored to have the opportunity to be here with the two of you.
But let's make no mistake about it. This is also a good time to get back at Greg Smith, maybe fire a shot or two at Greg. And so we'll give you that opportunity, I'm sure.
Sure. Well, my goal is just to make sure I'm funnier than Greg, and that's really not setting the bar too
high. There's
wow.
a lot of truth.
Well, I was going to say, though, I don't know if Greg's going to care because he's off, like, living the life on vacations. I just spoke to him, and he just got back from, like, a cruise, and then he's going somewhere. I can't remember where else he's going. He's been headed off somewhere else. So pretty jealous of him right now.
Yeah. Well, Greg's the only athletic director I know that can afford, or I guess he's former athletic director, that can afford to have his foot in 3 different states. So I don't know how he did that. Probably needs to be an investigation on his bookkeeping that he can afford to do that, but he pulled it off. But now he's retired, so he's only got his foot in 2 states. So I guess I'll have to let him off the hook.
Well, what you'll find out, and those of you listening or watching on YouTube, you'll get to see there'll be some shots fired at Greg Smith, but it's all in good heart. And my first experience with Mike and Greg in the same room was one that will be remembered forever, and has gone down in infamy in the boardroom. But we may get into that, we may not, I don't know. But what I want to do is, I can talk about Mike for days. Mike was in the NIAAA cohort, the executive leadership cohort. I got to be a mentor for that. Somehow they let me be a mentor, and Mike got through that process and that program. And he talked about at the beginning of this, how he likes to grow. And that was an opportunity to grow professionally, to kind of stretch himself. And I learned one of his catchphrases and one of his mottos, and we may discuss that in a little bit. But Mike, what I like to do is I like to ask people to kind of tell us what the resume doesn't tell us about who Mike Mossbrucker is when you're not the AD. I mean, I got a glimpse of your home. I got to see the memorabilia down in the basement. I know you're an avid memorabilia collector, but what defines Mike Mossbrucker outside of being the AD?
I obviously I like to have a good time. I mean, I need to laugh. That's really important to me. I try to bring that to our office every day. Um, I want to be a person that brings some energy to the room. Sometimes I say things that I think are funny and nobody else does, and nobody else gets it. But that may be because I'm generally the oldest person in the room. So yeah, I want to have a good time or whatever setting it is that I'm in, and so that's a number one. I really, like Dustin said, he's been to my house. I enjoy my home. I enjoy taking care of my yard. I enjoy taking care of my pool area. I like doing small projects. I installed my water heater a couple weeks ago because the other one went out. I enjoy stuff like that. I like spending time with my family, my wife's family. They were over yesterday. We were celebrating my brother-in-law's. He's retiring, so we had a day yesterday at our pool, and we had a bunch of family over and some of his work friends, and so we had a great day yesterday in the sun. A few weeks ago, had a outing with 4 other high school buddies of mine. I have a high school buddy that owns a house on a really nice lake in northern Indiana, and each year we gather together, and he's got a boat and a sea-doo and all the toys that go along with a lake. And we literally for 2 days sat and ate and talked. And we didn't go on the lake. We didn't get in the boat. We didn't get in the sea-doos. We did play. We went to play golf. We played 9 holes, and we all looked at each other and say, "That's enough." And we stopped right in the middle, and we went and had lunch. So, you know, sporting events, college football. Both my sons played college football, so I enjoyed traveling around, watching that, and still enjoy traveling around to college football games. That's a delight for me. Enjoy taking my wife and I on a Jeep ride to find a new ice cream destination. We enjoy putting the top down and driving around, and we both enjoy ice cream, and so that's something we have some friends. Bless us, Bradley. We've gone on spring break for 20 plus years, 25 years, and we enjoy vacationing with friends and stuff like that. So that's kind of me outside of being an AD. I've got 2 sons, and they've got families. My wife's getting ready to fly out to see my grandchildren in Colorado today, so I'm going to be at home alone for a few days. She's worried about me, but I'll manage. But yeah, so I'm really actually looking forward to her getting the opportunity to go out and see her grandkids. She enjoys them so much, so that gives me joy.
So let me ask you this: you made the statement about when you played golf, you guys said that's enough. Have you ever said those words in the vicinity of Greg Smith? Let's just establish that from the get-go. Have you ever said that's enough to Greg Smith or of Greg Smith?
Well, and what I would say is I like poking fun at Greg, but I will never say I've had enough of Greg. I love Greg. I will always give him a hard time, and I will expect the same from him. But I will never get enough of Greg.
Well,
What a
reality is he
great guy,
deserves the
great
hard
friend.
time.
Yeah. Oh, he earns it.
Right.
And he doesn't even work at it. But he earns it. So he's got it coming for sure.
I definitely feel like you're speaking my language, Mike. You like to have a good time. I'm a 9-hole type of girl, and I love ice cream. So you're sitting here talking, and I'm like, this is great. I want to come to your house.
Hey, you're invited. You come ahead. I mean, Indianapolis is a great vacation destination. I live just south of Indy, 10 minutes from the airport. I just picked up my sister the other day. She flew in from Sweden. Her daughter lives there, and so I picked her up and from the airport. So yeah, we get you on a destination somewhere from to Indianapolis in no time.
And I will attest to this. He is not far from the airport. We got to journey down to his house. Obviously, it was a little bit further from the national office, but Mike drove back and forth every day to be a part of our board meetings. So I go back to I've enjoyed getting to listen to Mike, but it wasn't just in the boardroom. I got to listen to him on the executive leadership cohort and got to learn from him and really just value his insight, value his knowledge. He's a veteran in the AD world and has done it a long time and enjoys doing it and goes to work every day to be more. And we may visit about that here in just a little bit. But Mike, what we like to do on this show is we just like to have fun. We like to have a conversation, have fun. You said you like to laugh. You said you like to bring that to the office every day. And so when we discussed this, you and I kind of had a prep call before and just talked about, man, we like to have the story times.
I didn't know about this prep call. I'm being blindsided.
How do you think we got him scheduled?
All right, here we go.
We didn't talk stories. I just gave him the format of what the podcast is about. So I'm flying blind into this just as well as you are. Okay. But I know Mike has had some experiences, we'll say, in his time in the athletic director chair that may blow your mind, may be like, wow, did that really happen? So Mike, I'm going to open the floor to you and let you just run with that however you want to run with it.
Sure. And I suppose, I mean, like we've got stories, and I've got stories about facilities, stories about parents, stories about coaches. Some you can tell, some you can't. And probably some of the funniest things. We are a pretty good football school, and we were hosting one of our rivals. This is probably about 20 years ago, and it's a big game. There is not a seat in our stadium, and it's one of these deals where these people brought a video board to our game, and so they're playing stuff and advertisement, and the game's going well, and we're ahead, and so that's even better because we're beating one of our rivals, and then it starts pouring down rain, and it gets so muddy on our field that one of the officials, we actually had to stop the game because his shoe got stuck in the mud and pulled his shoe off his foot, so we had to stop the game so he could get his shoe back on. And it was a few minutes later, there's a huge explosion at the end of our field, and every light in the area goes out. And so now we are in a stadium. There is no lights, no emergency lights. I mean, we have one of the largest crowds we have all year. And I mean, we're all kind of in a panic. Plus, there's an explosion. I mean, fire is shooting out of the top of this transformer, and and it's almost like it was a bomb. Had it been, Well, I'll just leave it at that. It was like a bomb. I mean, it shook the ground. It shook you. And so we're all kind of going, "What was that first?" We're trying to figure out what it was. And so we hop in a golf cart and drive down to the other end, and there's still smoke coming out of this. We figured out our transformer blew up, and we had a guy that was a power and light guy that was wrestled for me and played football for me. And he was at the game, so we found him and we took him down there. And he says, "Well, you're not playing tonight." And so now we got to figure. Okay, so this big game, we're late in the third quarter. We got to finish this game. It's a conference game. We're not finishing it tonight. So immediately, the other team, who has a turf football field, wants us to go to their place and finish the game. Our coach said, we're literally standing in the middle of the field. There's, other than the lights that are being provided by this video board, it is pitch dark. I mean, it's 9 o'clock at night, and so we're standing out there, trying to figure out the logistics. We're not going to have a scoreboard. We're not going to have, but we're playing this game at Morrisville tomorrow morning. We've determined that. Come hell or high water, and it may have been high water because it was still pouring down rain. We're not going there to play on their turf, and so we kind of, can we get officials? Some of our officials do college games, so they couldn't help us out. They're calling their buddies, and we finally get it all worked out. We're going to play, and we 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We've settled it. Our principal's out there with us, and we get done. So we start trying to get kids and parents out of the stands. Of course, everything is by word of mouth because we have no PA.
That was gonna be my next question. So it took out not just the lights; it took out all the electricity. Okay.
I mean, on our campus, there is no electric.
So
nothing.
Oh, so it took it out to the school, to everything, not just the stadium.
Everything. No electric. And
so how are you getting people? Like, are people like sitting down in the stands, or are they?
Yeah. And what I would tell you is learning experience as an athletic director. What we learned? One, we need to have flashlights. Everybody should have flashlights in their golf carts. There should be flashlights in the press box, flashlights in the concession stand. Megaphones so that we can direct people, let people know. Police, we need to have an action plan with them. I mean, we learned a lot that day. But the worst thing of it was, so then we figure out, we got parents coming to us. What do you mean you're playing tomorrow? Tomorrow's SAT day. And so we've got parents that are, and rightfully so. I mean, but we're standing in the middle of our football field. We have no communication with everybody. And so the next thing I know, our principal and their principal are kind of bickering back and forth about this decision to play the next day. And their principal had been a former assistant principal at our school. So we knew this person really, really well. And they went back and forth about it. And finally, our principal goes, the person makes their last ditch effort to get us to change the game. And we've got other athletic events the next day anyway. I mean, we've got soccer games. It's not like we cleared off the day for just SAT. I mean, everybody else, we have state finals, like state tournament stuff going on, like soccer sectionals. And so it's not like there's not other things. But our principal had enough, and he looked at her and he said, she argued one more time, and he goes, "Duly noted," and turned around and walked off. And so the duly noted, I got to tell you, I have laughed, and every time I see my former principal who's moved on, I always find a way to work in the duly noted comment. because it was a classic. I mean, he'd had enough. We were drenched. We were wet. It was. We were trying to get officials. We were trying to get workers, and we're trying to do this in the middle of a football field where we can't see, you can't communicate. So funny story. I mean, you had to have been there, but we learned a lot from the event, for sure. But that and you do. That's what you do in this business. Some of the stuff isn't in the manual. Uh, you have to learn from it. We talked earlier. The really good people in this business figure it out on the fly. And luckily for me, I've had an opportunity to be in it long enough that it becomes easier to figure it out on the fly. With
I've never had my stadium lose lights, but I have had it in the gym. And I had similar situations that you had, but because of that incident with me, I was ready for that stadium light to go out on me. Like, I was ready. I had megaphone in the press box. I had this whole plan where I was going to have the fire trucks and the police like all turn their lights on, so we had some sort of light, but also cell phones, right? Everybody has a cell phone. Everyone turns on their flashlight. Everybody should be able to get down from the stairs. We had an old stadium, and I was really concerned about the stairs. So you're saying this, and as you were saying it all, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that was on my plan. Yeah, that was my plan. I feel like my plan was. I'm so happy that I did not need to use it at the stadium. I was so happy. I had lights go out at a baseball field, but that wasn't as bad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mike just went past the fact that the field was in a bad shape. It was in a bad way, and the official lost a shoe, and they had to stop the game so he could go.
Nothing was going well that night.
Yeah. Our field was done for the year. I mean, literally, the next week, I got a guy to bring a roller out and roll it so we can roll out the mud. I mean, how it gets muddy and you leave footprints and stuff like that. I had a construction guy bring a roller out and roll the field just to kind of flatten out the bad spots. So
well, I have to ask, did you win the game?
We won the game.
Yay!
Absolutely, we won the game. That's what matters.
Now, my question is this: did the video board that they brought, was it run off a generator?
It was. They had their own power, so that was literally the only source of light. And we had the fire and the rescue people there. For when we have a football game on Friday night in our community, we probably have 4 or 5 fire trucks, 2 or 3 ambulances. Everybody in town, every safety, they're here. Mm-hmm. And they've got their trucks here, and they've got them pointed out the gate, ready to go if they've got an emergency. But they come and they watch the games, and that's the great thing about having a community like Mooresville is everybody's part of it. They want to come and see it. I want them here. We have multiple police available, the city, county, police. So it's a great opportunity on a Friday night for our community to have a great time.
So wait, I'm glad that you brought this up, Justin, because I don't want to forget to talk about this video board that the visiting team brought for you.
The visiting team didn't bring it. It was just this game that's being played is a big game in the area, and everybody knows it's a big game.
Okay.
It's usually a great contested game, and people want to be at it. I mean, we have people that want to do telecast of it that have nothing to do with either school. It's just a popular game, and so they were here because it's a popular game. They weren't tied.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought you meant the other school brought it, and I had a
yeah,
lot of questions.
yeah.
I've had some issues with, I mean, I remember one time a school brought a cannon, and because that it made sense for what they were, and I was like their mascot, and I was like, what 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 you want to bring a cannon onto campus? So but yeah, I thought the other school brought it, and I was like, they're gonna advertise on your field. My mind was blown, but never mind. Take all that
No, 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 no,
back.
no, no. We wouldn't let that happen.
Well, I want to talk about just that conversation. And was the other administrator there, or were you just letting your principals have out the discussion of when you were going to play the game?
Well, the other principal was not on the field when we were trying to figure out. It was their coach, our coach, the officials, and our principal and myself. And so we're trying to work through the logistics of it. Their coach was awesome. He was agreeable to everything. We thought we had a great plan. We walked out of there. We started trying to go to the different pockets of people and try to explain it, try to spread the word. And then all of a sudden, this principal comes marching up to our principal and not having any of it. You realize what you've done, and starts giving him the business. And how
Football games are
we not?
so hard to reschedule. There's such a
Yeah,
limited time constraint on when you can actually reschedule a football game.
yeah. They're Saturday's it, and
Yeah.
in defense of the coaches, they want to get it done in the morning because they're already behind the eight ball. Because generally speaking, Saturday morning they're already planning for next Friday.
Mhm.
So their schedule is already a mess now because they've got to, our honestly, our coaches, they and I'm sure that they washed everybody's uniform so that at least you're putting on a clean uniform. I mean, so they're here late Friday night trying to figure out how we're going to get our uniforms clean because we got no electric. And so we're letting kids take their stuff home and so I mean, there are just all kinds of stuff but everything was great until we start telling everybody what we were going to do, and then not a happy camper.
Now, how long did it take you? I mean, you said it went out to the whole school, right? So this is a Friday night. So did you have electricity for school on Monday?
Yeah,
You
yes,
did. Okay. So people came out and fixed it for
yeah,
you.
oh yeah. The very next day, we had power trucks at our. What the first one got stuck
The mud.
getting back to the transformer, so we had to have a wrecker. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, the story. I mean, it's just amazing how many things can go wrong. Yeah, oh, it did. So yeah, the first wrecker or the first power truck got stuck trying to get back to our transformer, but
So
yeah.
when the transformer blew and it shook everything, was it in the middle of play or was there a
Oh yeah.
timeout?
Oh yeah, I mean there was it was right in the middle of the game, and yeah, it and everybody. I mean, honestly, everybody's a little bit frightened. I
Right.
mean, I was. I mean, and then you look down there and you see this flame coming out of this box and smoke and sparks and
We
yeah, it was a little bit, oh my gosh, what has happened? And then you kind of start putting the pieces together. Oh, that's down there by the transformer. And then I got my power and light guy, who was my former wrestler football player, and took him down and he said, oh, Mike, you got a problem here. He goes, you're not playing tonight. So,
As if the fire coming from the transformer wasn't indicative enough.
yeah.
Didn't do
that
it.
you had a problem.
Well, I'm a little bit
Confirmation.
slow.
You
You know,
needed
I
confirmation.
needed it spelled out for me. So
No athletic director on this planet wants to be the one to tell a football game in progress that it's not going to continue. That is
yeah. Oh yeah.
not a good time at
Yeah.
all. It
No.
doesn't make a difference what school you're at. You do not want to be the AD that's like, yeah, we're not
Yeah.
playing the rest of this game tonight. So
Right.
I understand that you needed
Yeah.
extra confirmation.
Oh yeah.
Well,
We
the
had
complications on top of that. I mean, not just that. Hey, is it going to be dry enough and safe enough to play tomorrow? Are we going to have power? Can we run a scoreboard? Can they come back?
we
Can
couldn't even wash the
transportation?
uniforms.
No. Yeah. And we did not have a scoreboard. Oh, actually, we did. Our maintenance guys figured out how we could bypass. We hooked up a generator so that we could run our scoreboard, and so we actually ended up having a scoreboard. But
Wow, that's impressive.
yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, it took a lot to get us even to that point, but we didn't have a PA or anything like that. But we had the game. I mean, we got through it. But the coaches were awesome. I mean, they got it. They wanted to get it done. And I get where the principal was coming from at the moment, but she wasn't thinking logistically what everybody else athletically was thinking.
Right.
And so, and we, you know, we had a few of our own parents, and we had kids that were telling their parent, because we told our kids, hey, if you got the SAT and you need to go do that, you need to go do that. We'll finish the game without you. And they did the same. And we had moms particularly that were not happy with us because their sons were telling their moms, I'm playing in the game tomorrow. You're going to have to reschedule the SAT for me. And they weren't having any part of it. And it, it turned out fine. But in the moment, it was a mess for sure.
Did you get the golf cart stuck at all?
No, no golf cart stuck. No golf cart stuck.
I was gonna say, a couple of things, but first, because of first of all, principals have been behaving badly lately on some of our stories. The coaches, you're like, the coaches were great. It was the principals. We've had a couple episodes where the principals have been kicked out or gone off all on Hinge. So I feel like that is a thing that we're starting to see. But in addition to that, we also had an episode where a light pole has fallen over. So Mike, the reason I'm telling you this is it could have been a lot worse.
Oh, no doubt, for sure.
And swimming in that mud that night, you probably were thinking it can't get any worse than
Oh
this.
no!
Oh my gosh, it was. I mean, literally, it was raining sideways. I mean, it was pouring. It was awful, and we had. I mean, luckily, probably for us, is some of the fans are fair weather fans, and once the rain started, some of them left. And
so you weren't as packed as it could have been.
But we weren't as packed as we were when we started the game, when it was a really nice, beautiful Friday night for a football game, for sure.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah, until it wasn't. And when it wasn't, it was a mess.
And then you got people I know.
We've since gotten turf, so we're good now. So no worries with mud anymore on our football field.
Yeah, but then you're still dealing with power and all that. I mean, that stuff could have happened. Transformer could have blown, and then you got a whole nother. I mean, you're still in that same boat.
Yeah,
it just was a little cleaner.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I did learn something that night. Another thing that night is my power and light guy goes, "Hey, have you noticed this train? Has it smelled like oil, or did it smell like oil?" I said, "Yeah, I did notice that." And so he says, he goes, "Well, that's a sign that your transformer's going bad." I said, "Oh, okay, good to know." Probably would have been better if I'd have known that previous, but good to know. So I learned a lesson there for sure. I mean, I learned a lot of lessons, but But it all turned out fine. Nobody was hurt. And we got the game in, and we won the game, and so all good, all good.
But I mean, all you've done is describe the nightmare of every athletic administrator on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
And it wasn't just one thing. You had several things that led to this deal, and then with the weather and not having turf at the time and the amount of mud and then no power and the transformer blows and trying to communicate with all the fans that were still there, the diehards that were there in the elements, and then rescheduling with the conflict of the SAT and some parents upset about that. The processes that you had to go through is just the nightmare that every athletic director wants to avoid. And there are very few times, I'm sure, that people say, "I don't want to be Mike Mossbrucker," but in that moment, there weren't very many people that wanted to be Mike Mossbrucker.
No. I love talking. Our parents come in, and you guys had, man, you have such a great job. You just get to go and watch games all the time. That must be so much fun. And with that said, I love my job, love it, but there's moments where we all know it's not very much fun. And while that was honestly there was a lot going on, you just work through it. I mean, you just work through each problem as you work through them, and the calmer you can stay, and it's kind of like being an athlete. Take a deep breath and breathe and slow your heart rate down, and don't get emotional, and just work through your process and work through the problems one at a time, and try to take into account what other people are telling you, because you got lots of people in your ear trying to give you information. And it was certainly a night of the anatomy of an athletic director and how to deal with a bunch of problems all at once, for sure.
Well, and I think it's important to note too, and we've talked about this a lot on our podcast, but pretty much everything that happened was out of your control. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't like you forgot to do something that caused this, and it was a domino effect. It was, this is the circumstances that you were given. It didn't make a difference who you were, how many courses you took, how many years you were an AD for. This was going to happen, and it was just how you reacted to it. And I think that's an important part and a good takeaway, because there are going to be issues that you have to deal with as an athletic director. It isn't always going to just go swimmingly because you have everything you do on a checklist done. So I think that's really important, because it's hard. It can be hard when you have a whole stadium or people angry at you because of a decision you made over something that wasn't your fault at all.
Yeah.
Although
I think he made a statement earlier, and I'm gonna ad lib a little bit and just kind of have some freedom in what I say here. But Mike said it was a great Friday night for football, and Danielle followed it up with, until it wasn't. And Mike, I think, just said, I love my job until I don't. And maybe one of those moments was until I don't. That's one of those times you're like, man, it's not a lot of fun doing that.
No. Well, and it's a testament to how great of an AD you are, if a parent or somebody thinks, oh, you just get to go to games, you have a great job. That's because they're not seeing all the behind the scenes stuff. One of my favorite things about being an AD is behind the scenes stuff. I don't want to be the person in the spotlight, right? I want my coaches to shine and my kids to shine, but I just want to be in the background, making it so they can focus on coaching kids and practicing and doing their best out on the field. So I think that's a huge testament when someone's like, well, this is all you do. And you're like, well, I'm doing my job if that's what you think.
Yeah.
But sure. I think Mike would have probably wanted to be the road AD on that game.
For sure.
Because the decisions are a whole lot easier when can we reschedule. You don't have to worry about all the other stuff.
When do I need my bus to pick up my kids?
Right.
Yeah. one time when being in away school is a benefit, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I tell people. The best time to be the AD is to be the road AD.
Yeah.
Love away games.
Just go watch the game.
I get to actually watch the game when it's away game, right? Like I love away games.
Yeah. Oh, I do too, because the key to a good away game is you got to know where the best places to eat on the road are.
I was just gonna say, don't go
Oh
hungry.
my gosh! And what I mean, what an opportunity to get yourself cultured a little bit
Yeah.
by spending time in the opposing team's favorite place to eat in that community. No
Yeah.
doubt,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt.
Now, Mike, I'd be remiss. I mean, I think we've jumped on this story a lot, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. Have you ever been, in your wrestling days, have you ever been sucker attacked by somebody, maybe jumping over a table, or when you weren't prepared for it?
Well, as a matter of fact, as a wrestler, certainly there are opportunities for people to sneak up on you. I must admit, I've never been snuck up on in a boardroom uh, just before a meeting when I'm on the floor trying to help people get their computers plugged in. And all of a sudden, some guy comes from nowhere and jumps on top of me. That was a first for me. I mean, no doubt I was a little bit taken back by that. Probably, I mean, my college wrestling coach told me, he told our team one time when we were talking about, well, we need to get warm. He goes, "You guys don't need to get warmed up. Put your shoes on, tie your laces up, let's go." And I just hadn't tied my laces up. I just wasn't quite ready yet. And yeah, Greg kind of got one over on me that day for sure.
I heard about that day.
Oh yeah, he's really pretty proud of himself.
He
about
is. He really is.
The best part of that story is Mike was serving others. He had gone under the table to plug in the power cords for other people's computers. He was just out in the middle of the ring, if you will. I mean, it was just a squared off, tables were in a square, and he was in there just serving others, just gladly, hey, I'll plug this in for you. I'll get in here. I'll sacrifice. And then out of nowhere, off the top rope, it seemed like Greg come flying over the table and attacked.
And if that makes poor Greg feel any better about himself than he does, then I'm glad to have contributed to Greg's feeling about himself.
Oh,
because I do sometimes worry about Greg and his self-image.
I feel like we missed the mark. We should have had Mike and Greg on together. Maybe we can do that at a later date, because I feel like we wouldn't even have to talk, Dustin.
I
we could
think
just sit
Greg
back
and I could entertain you for sure.
No question.
Well, I
we're
really
pretty good about the jabs.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your wisdom. And I think that your story has a lot of very, very valuable takeaways. And if you're listening to this as an AD and you do not have an emergency action plan for your lights going out at any of your facilities, you need to have one right now. Make it right now. Take some of the things that Mike has learned. I mean, if you have an added twist of that rain in there, my emergency action plan didn't account for rain. that wasn't in it an added thing, but yeah, I think it was a really great story that I don't ever want to happen to me or any of the other ADs.
Sure.
But as Mike will tell you, he had to adjust on the fly. That's our profession. That's what we do. We have to just adjust and adapt. And that situation, although out of his control, he was still forced to come up with solutions. And here's the situation. Here's the remedy. We'll figure it out as we go. You can't be specific in your emergency action plan that when the field is so muddy that the official has to stop play to get his shoe. I mean, you can't get that detailed. Or when your transformer blows or whatever that looks like. But you've got to be able to just adjust as things happen. And Mike proved that he was able to do that. They got the game in. And not only that, but they won the next day. So all was well in Mike Mossbrucker's world the
And he
next
got
day,
a
I'm
turf
sure.
field out of it. I'm sure this incident helped the turf
Yeah,
field argument.
absolutely.
But
And what I didn't add to the story is my wife and I had been scheduled. My son was playing at University of Iowa at the time, and so they had a night game, and so we were literally going to get up that morning and travel to Iowa City to watch the game. And our time to depart was delayed a little bit, so we could come back in the morning and do the game. But we did make it to Iowa City in time to watch the game, and so that all was well. But you got to kind of adjust as you're on the fly, and we did. So,
Well, that's part of it too. I mean, there were other plans. You're playing Saturday. Well, it didn't involve playing a game, but
yeah,
they got interrupted, and that's just what we do in this world of athletics. So,
yeah.
man, Mike, I appreciate you jumping on here. I appreciate your story. I appreciate your ability to make us laugh and your joy of life and just how you enjoy life. And that's a challenge to me. You make me better every time we talk. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you jumping on here.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Good deal.
That wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our sponsor, Wall of Fame, who excels at telling your school stories and supports us in telling ours. Check out the description of this episode for a link to receive a discount on all Wall of Fame products. We are looking forward to the next story and hope you are too.